Hey folks, it's your pal Mike Shea from slyflourish.com and twitter.com/slyflourish, and I'm the author of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. This is the second video going in depth into each of the 8 steps of game preparation described in Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. This video is going to focus on step 2, creating a strong start. So let's dig in. Creating a strong start is covered in chapter 4 of the book. And I know in the last video, I talked about how important it is to focus on the characters, and it is. It is probably equally important to have a really strong start to your game. You can really tell when this doesn't work right when you're running a game or you sit down in a game if you happen to be a player and people just aren't even sure that the game has started. Like we kind of don't know what anybody's doing. Everyone's sort of at a bar. There's sort of a summary of what happened. And then they're kind of, the players might be like, well, were we doing something? Was there a quest we were working on or something like that? Or another one would be if it's like a one-shot game at the beginning of a session that you're in a town and things are pretty calm and you're all at the inn and you're all having a drink and who wants to order some food? Is anybody ordering some food? And, there's a lot of talk about ordering food. And that's not what I would consider a strong start. A strong start to me, first and foremost, tells all of the players, hey, we're playing D&D. It gets everybody to kind of break away from whatever they're doing. They're off their phones. They've stopped the chatter. And everyone now says, we're in the middle of D&D. And it's kind of hard to do that if you ease into it. Instead, we can look at James Bond movies and cold opens, right? Let's just start with a gunfight. Let's start with something exploding. What is happening right now that matters to the characters and maybe is pretty urgent, right? These are games of action we're talking about, and urgency is part of that action. We want something to happen, and it could be something that's directly in front of the characters. Like perhaps they were at an outdoor eatery in their favorite small village when a bunch of bandits come riding in, like 50 bandits come riding in, and the characters are like, oh my God, there's 50 bandits. What do we do? Right? It could be the ground opens up and a huge sinkhole forms and a bunch of ankegs come pouring out of it. You're like, oh my God, ankegs, right? So we want something that happens and that puts characters in an immediate sense of urgency. It doesn't, so a dirty trick, one that I use often, I probably use it a little too much, but I think it's okay, is throwing people right into the middle of a fight. That nothing kind of tells people you're playing D&D like being attacked by a bunch of cultists, right? So if there's an opportunity, you don't want to force it too much. And again, I kind of tend to overdo this. But throwing people in the middle of a fight, it's hard to beat that as a way to really put that urgency in people. Rolling for initiative, we laugh about it. We'll say like, what is the best start of a game? It's like roll for initiative, right? Like let's get into a fight. Again, you don't want to do that all the time. I have a tendency to do that a little too often. And sometimes it doesn't fit the story and you're better having something else. But if you are starting your adventure and you're walking through the town and a man comes running up and he's bleeding and he's screaming about his 2 daughters, that's a strong start. Doesn't necessarily mean there's a fight, but it means, holy cow, something has happened. So we really want to focus on what's happening, right? The other one's like, what's the point? So one thing that I don't outline too much in the book, but it really is critical, is why does this matter to the characters? What's the hook? How does the strong start draw the characters into the adventure? If it's something that isn't related to them or doesn't matter to them, then they're going to go do something else. If they see 2 gangs getting in the middle of a fight in the middle of the street and it doesn't have anything to do with them, they're probably going to sit and drink their beer and watch those gangs fight. But if a bunch of villagers are in the way and these are people near and dear to the characters' hearts, they have a reason to get involved. So why does this start matter to the characters is pretty crucial. We can always say like, well, where is the action? And not just, action from like an action movie standpoint, but where are things happening? And how do we bring that thing that is happening to the characters and drop it in front of the players and say, here's this thing that's happening. What do you do? And the faster we can get to that question, what do you do? Right? That's really important too. If our narrative is going on and on and on, we're not doing a service to the game. If we can say like a meteor crashes down from the sky and obliterates a barn on the outside of town and crazy 6-armed mutants are starting to charge into the town. What do you do? Right? We want to describe what happens, describe the situation, and get them involved. They're like, I don't know, right? You want them to almost not panic exactly, but you kind of want them to like, I charge in an attack, or I check to make sure my people are safe, or something like that. You want to get to that action, and you want to get to that question of what do you do quickly with the start of your game. This is all talking about just the start of the game. And again, I mentioned starting with combat. That it's a dirty trick. If you don't know where to go and you don't know what to do, how do how can the party get attacked? Does an assassin climb in the window and try to stab someone? They're all sleeping at the end. Does somebody get stabbed? So I have a bunch of examples in the book here. I have 10 strong starts, but I'll offer a few other general ideas rather than kind of just reading what you can already read in the book. And that's like blow something up. Stephen King talked about this with with The Stand. He reached a point where he was writing The Stand where he had way too many characters. He's like, I don't know what to do. But he was like 500 pages into this manuscript and he didn't want to throw it away. And his wife Tabitha said, blow something up. And he did. He blew up a building and he killed like half the characters. And it was crazy. And it was a very big left shift in the whole book. So you can't go wrong. If you think about chapter 3 of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, the name of it is Fireball. And we're used to Fireball as like a spell, right? We're used to high-level wizards casting Fireball. But if you're talking about a bunch of villagers in a town and it's a nice day and all of a sudden a fireball explodes in the middle of the street and kills a bunch of people that matter to the characters, that is a strong start. And the characters are going to want to get involved. So really nice, strong start to that chapter. Crazy dreams. If you have a bunch of people and they're like not really in a threat, and you can't think about like, well, I don't know. Why would a bunch of assassins climb into their keep and start stabbing them to death? That kind of sucks. Dreams, man. Dream invasions are great. And villains who invade dreams are great. Like if any character who has been sort of psychically connected to a villain can have a dream sequence, and that dream can be big and powerful and meaningful, and they wake up and they learn something, and like, what are you going to do with that, right? You just learned something. Something is stolen. I'm careful about stealing stuff from characters. I don't think it's a great plot motive to take things away from them, but something can be stolen from somebody they care about. Somebody, a quest giver could have lost something. So rather than like steal the fighter's favorite sword, which you're just going to have a pissed off player if you do that. Instead, you can have somebody related. The king lost his sword, and you're asked to go get it, right? That is a strong, oh my God, I lost my sword. King is running down the street naked and screaming about the fact that he lost his sword. What do you do, right? Something's on fire. It's kind of like blowing something up, but, Cult of Elemental Evil shows up, and they start burning things. That's strong. Seeing something in the sky. A really good example of this is when... Gandalf and I think it's one of the hobbits. Which one? Peregrine Took? No, I don't remember. One of the hobbits. They're standing out in Minas Tirith, and they're talking and having a conversation, and a huge green beam of light bursts up from Minas Morgul into the sky, and both of them are looking at it, and they look at that, and they look at each other, and they look at that, and it's like that is a pronouncement that things are happening, right? Something happens. So having something show up in the sky is a big deal. A dragon flies over. Something, a meteor comes crashing down. They see a comet. This is a big George R. R. Martin thing in one of his books, was a red comet started streaking across the sky, and that means something. So the main thing here is we just want to make sure that we're dropping something in front of the characters that's going to matter to them, that shows them that the world is dynamic, and that gets them quickly into action, that gets them quickly into what do you do? So also in the book, I talk about strong starts in the middle of the adventure. What if we're in the middle of an adventure? We had to end in the middle of a session. Well, this is a good chance to have something happen. Even if they're in the middle of crawling through a dungeon and, you can't really think like, I don't know, they were just going in the next room. Well, something could happen. Cave-ins or rats attack, or they meet another adventurer who is traveling through who's all bloody and has some vital piece of information. So obviously you can start strong in the beginning of an adventure, but you can also start strong even if you're in the middle of one. So, you always need a strong start, even if they're starting in the middle of something, so I recommend it. And, again, I have an example throughout the book. We have an example called the Scourge of Veloxus, which is a sort of, how would you prepare for a game, example. And, we throw in a strong start here. And here we have, the last great trade day before winter falls upon White Sparrow, iron armored caravan filled with hooded hobgoblins attacks the bazaar. Their goal is to steal weapons and armor. So a bunch of hobgoblins are riding in an armored cart. What do you do, right? So So that's an approach. Something else that I mentioned in here, I don't know that I got to it, is that, is there an event that's occurring? And I love celebrations or parties or anything like that. And if you look at the Lazy DM's workbook, I have sort of an events that are occurring in town. And it's a random table where you can sort of decide what are the things that are going on in town right now. And I think you can make, it's got like 4 tables and you can make like 1,000 different variants. I think it's more than 1,000. You can make a lot of variants of things that are occurring in a town. So, even beyond having something explode or having a bunch of hobgoblins attack, it's also like, well, what's happening in town? Instead of just having them all sitting around having drinks, what if it's like the great festival of spring? Right. And they're all dancing around with flowers in their hair and they're doing a bunch of weird ceremonies to bring spring, bring spring around. So what's happening in town can be a really good, strong start as well. So the point is you just want to get into the game as fast as you can, have something happen that really matters, that draws the characters in, that gives them options for things that they can do, and drop them right into D&D. And I think that if you have that and you start with that, you have a really strong game. You can sort of figure out where to go next. And in future videos, we're going to talk about the other 6 remaining steps. But few of them are as important as the strong start. It is probably the one step that you will have in just about any game that you are going to run. How does your game begin? It's the one thing that you have control over before the characters get involved, before things start to go in all sorts of different directions. Where it begins right now is where you can focus your time. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We will have 6 more videos in the future, each of them covering the remaining 6 steps from the game preparation outlined in Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. If you look down in the description, you can find a link to the book, a link to the free preview chapters, and links to the other videos. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it useful, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much.